Hello everybody, this is Havoc and welcome back to our Total War Rome Remastered tutorial series, where I'm taking new people, be it beginners in the game in general, or the franchise, or whatever it may be, and taking you through some of the basics to kind of learn how to start your campaign. The last few episodes we've gone over your campaign basics, kind of trade, what your settlement does, your armies, your buildings, a little bit of diplomacy even, and we ended with this setup for our first battle. Now, if you remember in the last episode as well, I mentioned that rebel armies are not designed to be super intensive. They represent a sense of disorder in the area, and if you leave them alone, they will grow in size. But they're also meant as kind of some easy experience builders for some of your troops. The more your troops fight, the more veteran they get, and the harder they are to kill, and the better they do in battle. So as you can see here, our army led by Flavius Julius, which is our best commander at the moment, is leading 4 units of Hastati at rank 1. That's what the little chevron means. As they progress, they will go to 3 bronze chevrons, to then silver, to then 3 silvers at level 6, to then gold, and at gold 3 chevrons, you're looking at the maximum veterancy that a unit can hit. So right now, these are all level 1. Tier 1, they're pretty darn good units overall, we can see here. Aha. Now we have 4 units of Hastati, which is our basic light infantry. We have a unit of Triarii, which are our spearmen. And then we have a unit of Roman archers. And of course, if I left click on any of these units, it will bring up stats. Now this brings up your leader itself. But if we look at Hastati, they are light infantry. As you can see, they don't have any armor or weapons upgrades. We'll get to that probably much later on. But you'll see they do have a missile weapon before charging. They can sap, which is something we'll get to with sieges, and they are armor piercing. And you can just go through the stats. Morale is the strength of resolve in battle. The higher it is, less likely they are to rout. We have melee attack, how effective the attacks are with their primary melee. Missile attack, since this does have a missile unit. If you will click on, the Triarii, you'll see they do not have a missile attack, nor do they have ammo, and since they have neither of those, they do not have missile range. So that's something to keep an eye on. Missile attack is how much damage the actual missile does. So as you can tell, right here, it actually does quite a bit of ammo. And then you'll see of attack compared to the melee attack. But the kicker is that they only have 2 shots per. So there's ammo of 320, there's 160 units. So 2 volleys of ammo is all it gives. And then your missile range. This tells you basically how far away they have to be. Now we'll see this on the battlefield, and you'll see what is called your ranged arc, or arch, I guess it would be arc, which gives you a good distance meter on when they can throw that. Defense is the combined effects of the unit's armor, defense skill, and shield defense as we go and level these guys up, be it leveling up their armor or leveling up their experience. This will get higher and higher. Their armor is how much protection, which will again be affected by that. Your defense skills, how effective the unit is at parrying and dodging melee attacks. So there is a difference in armor versus their ability to just straight up miss being attacked. Their shield, how much protection provides against frontal attacks, and then a charge is how effective the unit is at attacking while charging. Now this will be probably a little bit higher for these boyos. If only I could select them for some. Here we go. Bodyguard. So you see charge is all the way up at 6. So these guys are very, very good at charging compared to Hastati. But anyway, so that kind of gives a breakdown. As you can see here, if we were to right click them right next to each other, we could see that Triarii are going to be much higher morale, a much higher defense, but again, they don't have that melee attack. Triarii are, I believe, tier 3 barracks. If we were to look into the building browser, we can see at what point we access them. Legion barracks is where, oh no, not even that. It's a tier 4, excuse me. So we'd have to get to tier 4 to get a unit of Triarii. So with that in mind, you really want to try and keep this dude alive as much as you can. I think it's very important that you do. And you can see they have a bonus fighting cav. And then your Roman archers, they aren't going to be very good in terms of melee combat or defense at all, but their ammo is pretty massive and they have a very, very significant range. So these are all things that you'll learn as you play along. You'll see the different units. You'll see all of their different stats as you're able to recruit them. But it is important to keep in mind, just for general purposes, so you know what to use. So what we're going to do is we are going to attack. I do believe that this garrison will come and reinforce if we ask them to, but we're not going to worry about it. So we're going to hover over. We're going to right-click just like we do when besieging settlements or moving or anything of that effect. All right. So any unit that gets attacked, excuse me, has the ability to retreat, as you just saw. Now, the bummer and the risk that you take when retreating if you are outnumbered is that you may not retreat far enough, and they may be able to attack you again. You can only retreat once. So this army, if I go and attack him again, he is going to have to fight me. He does not have a choice. Awesome. All right. Here is your battle deployment. We didn't see this with the siege because we sieged it all the way down. But we do have some stats that we didn't have earlier. So for instance, we have a total number of 1,059 deployed. They only have 564. We knew that from the get-go. But you can now see his units. So he has a unit of, I do believe these are Velites, or Velites, however you want to say it. They have a unit of Town Watch, and they have a unit of Peasants. This is going to be a very, very simple battle. But I just want to show you it so we can get an idea on how to use things. And then you'll notice this little button right here. So anytime that you retreat, as I just mentioned, and you get attacked again, if you lose that battle, you will fight to the death. That means that you will lose the entire army. So that's a very important thing to remember, is that if I retreat and they attack me again, I will die. My entire army will be wiped out if I do not win. So just a heads up, kind of gives you an idea on the strategies of choosing when to get into battle or when to set up somewhere. All right, so this just gives some basic things, who we're fighting against, the predicted auto-resolve strength, or the strength of our armies in comparison. And then we have the option to auto-resolve. If we resolve the battle with the AI, we would have a pretty high chance of winning, with the potential for very little troops being lost. We could retreat ourselves if we wanted to. Don't know why we would. That's more for if you're being attacked, or if you attack someone you can't see an army composition of, and you realize I can't fight this or whatever. But what we're really wanting to do is we're wanting to fight the battle. But here is an interesting thing right here. We could launch a night attack. You have to have the ability within your general. So this wouldn't even be a selectable, toggleable option if we didn't have this trait. But what night attack does is obviously it makes the battle fight at night. If we were to do that, any armies, any reinforcing armies, I should say, that do not have that ability will not fight in that battle. So for instance, it's very similar to a sort of first strike, if you're familiar with some of the more recent games, especially Warhammer. I believe Warhammer may be the only one that has it, where you are going to fight or you get attacked by an enemy that is severely outnumbering you due to reinforcements. But I have the night battle and 3 of the 4 armies that are fighting against me do not, then I could single out the one army that is attacking me. So that kind of gives you the advantage. We're not going to fight a night battle. We may fight it later on, but I want to give you one in the day so you can figure out what it is. But we are going to fight the battle. It's going to zoom in the very classic Rome Total War style, and then we're going to load it. All right.
Over there.
This is the best part of every Total War battle, Total War Rome battle.
Should they win, at best we will all die beneath their cruel whips.
General speeches. We're going to listen to it.
Stomach just to gaze upon them. Today, the carrion birds feast, but they will feast upon our enemies, not on good Roman flesh.
All right. Like I said, that's the best part of Rome Total War or Total War Remastered. The general speeches are back in. So general speeches are really, really interesting, and they've actually been improved since the base game. Basically, what general speeches are is they will take various factors of the battle, from the terrain, from the weather, from the general's abilities, to whoever you're fighting against, even to army composition. And depending on their influence skill, I do believe it's influence, the speeches will be very, very simple, or they will increase in grandeur as the general is more and more impressive. So it's basically just a cool way to set up some cinematic purpose for the game. Sometimes they'll give you some hints as to what you need to do or what can be accomplished, essentially. There's a whole lot of information, but they are always cool to listen to, so I highly recommend that you do. So it's just going to go through here, and basically what we are going to do is we're going to fight it, because I always like fighting in whatever terrain or whatever weather it gives me. But this wait right here gives you 3 chances for more conductive battle weather. That's no guarantee. So you do run the risk of getting even worse weather, like be it fog where you can't see very well, or it stays with rain. But you can trigger. You have 3 chances to trigger basically dry, sunny weather in order to do so. We'll actually do it just for the kicks and giggles so you can see what it's like. If we hit wait, there we go. So as you can see, very nice weather. There's no reason to wait anymore. And then we're going to hit start deployment. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is your battlefield. And there is a lot to go over before we even start the battle. So we're going to focus on the Edge UI like we did very quickly. Hopefully it won't be too long. Right over here are the same alerts like you saw in your campaign. This will notify you of things like fallen generals or your own general dying, maybe some units routing, some reinforcements for both you or your enemies, a whole range of things. I don't pay attention to this so much because you can hear it when he talks, but it is something that you can customize on the campaign side of things. You can customize those alerts if you want to, something to be mindful of. The advisor here, there is no advice available at this time because we didn't do it, but this is the battle advisor, where he will tell you things that you might want to consider, things you might want to do during the battle, and is a pretty helpful tool for those beginning. Up on top, this top bar will give you the percentage chances of you winning, so the balance of power. So right now you can see that we have a very high chance of winning this battle. And then it also gives you, based on like the newer games, your allied troop count and your enemy troop counts. And then that percentage is how many of those troops are still there. So the percentage isn't necessarily going to represent the balance of power. For instance, I could lose 60 or 40% of my army and still have the same troop count as the enemy and still probably have a much better chance at winning. But this will give you kind of a balance of power, gives you how many troops are left. It's a very good thing to keep in mind of while you're playing, to kind of see where things might be going. This is your battle camera time functioning tactical mapping type of thing. You can see here we have half speed, which is a new feature to the remaster. This is your normal speed, so you could do a half speed or even pause in order to execute some maneuvers. There is absolutely no harm in doing that. Or if there's a slog going on, or you're waiting for an army to show up, or you yourself are moving an army, you can do double speed or even triple speed, depending on how good of a player you are. This right here is your simple zoom into the battle map. If it's a small battle, then you could, keep things close a little bit. Again, we're going to go into the tactical map in a second, though, which is this button, but also tab. I guess we can go ahead and do that. So unlike other Total War games, this tactical map is actually better than those other games, simply because instead of just seeing your units way up high like this, you can actually zoom in, see more statistics about them right off the bat, including morale, the number of ammo, the amount of ammo they have, the number of troops they have, and then their condition, whether they are fresh, tired, etc., etc. So that tactical map is actually much more improved from other games, which is really, really cool. And then this allows you to, if you don't need any of that, you can just suck it up there. What's really cool here is, again, a more modern Total War feature, is a wide range of things that you can toggle on and off, or you can lock them. So let's take a look at this. So right now I have this toggled on. So that way, when I have a selection, it will do the toggles correctly. What I could do is I could constantly have that selection marker on, and I could lock it. And what it should do is then keep those at all times. This is mainly for kind of figuring out where your troops are. It is sometimes difficult to know what your formations will look like. So by doing this, when you drag out your formation, it will stay on. If we were to turn it off, that doesn't show up unless I am dragging the unit. So it's just really helpful for keeping formations, but also some people just like having it toggled on. Your movement paths. If I draw a movement path, or if I tell a unit to go a certain direction, it will show that movement path. It'll show all of your movement paths so you know exactly where they're going, where they're going to stop, which is pretty important in my opinion. If you wanted to keep an eye on formations, and if you moved something forward and you're not sure where they were going to stop, whether you want to tell them to stop or not, will give a good idea based on movement paths. Firing arcs, you are seeing those right now. I don't toggle those on nonstop. I actually have them so they're only going to show when they are selected. These are your Hastati. You remember that they had that ranged attack. This is going to be their range, so it's not super far. It is a very, very up-close missile attack. And if we look at the Roman archers, you can see the difference in their range. So that's something to keep in mind of as well. When we go back over here, you can hide foliage. This is a recent thing. Super, super helpful in battles, though. I always have hide foliage on because it's very, very important to me. Obviously, not really any trees here, so I don't think we're going to have to worry about it. But still, it's always good to have it on. The unit stats are the same thing that you see from the tab. I personally don't like them on because it looks way too Total War Saga Troy, and I don't really like that UI system. However, for a new person, I actually would recommend that you turn it on so you can, at any point, see what's happening to your units. I will say it is incredibly helpful, but having played this long enough, it's not important to me. But as a beginner especially, this is your morale, as I've mentioned. This is the amount of ammo you have. This is the number of troops that you have total, and this is their condition, their fatigue level. And then you'll notice that they have a sword and an arrow. It means they are a mixed range combat. They have that initial 2 throws, and then they become melee only. This signifies that they are archers. This signifies that they're spearmen. This is your general's unit. It's all very comprehensive when you think about it, but sometimes it does need explained. And then lastly, you'll have your unit banners. So this is more representative for whenever you are fighting in a big battle and you need to know which troops are your own. Very, very helpful. So I'm going to keep those unit banners on. And then you have some battle defaults. These are also critically important, just like absolutely everything else. This basically will toggle what will always happen whenever you execute an action. So for instance, by default, if I click a unit to go somewhere, they will always be running. If I click it off, they will always be walking. Now, walking versus running, if you walk someone, they don't have a fatigue rating. They don't lose fatigue. If you have them run everywhere, they will lose fatigue. Now, you can balance this based on your playstyle. If you are new, I highly recommend that you just walk everyone for a while. It will allow for longer battles in terms of getting troops into the battle, but it will save you on fatigue, and fatigue is very, very important. Next up is guard mode. Guard mode by default is always on for me. What guard mode does is they will maintain formation when attacked, and they will not chase routing enemies. This is very important, especially for larger battles. What you don't want is a whole bunch of units running around everywhere, chasing some tail, metaphorically, and you losing your formations and getting too spread out. So guard mode means they'll attack, they'll stay in formation to do so, and when that unit retreats and these guys have won the battle, they will stay right there. I always recommend guard mode, especially for beginners, but you're going to have to get used to the idea that if you want one certain unit to go attack, you're going to have to toggle off that. So for instance, I always, well, most of the time, remember to toggle off my cav because I do want them to pursue routing enemies. But I always want everyone else to be on default. We got next up, we got skirmish mode. This is limited to your ranged units only. That includes ranged cavalry. And you can even see down here, skirmish mode. Skirmish mode basically says that once a unit gets close enough to that ranged unit, they will start retreating to prevent them from getting attacked. I'm always super mixed on skirmish mode because typically I will slap my ranged units behind a melee front, so they don't usually have to worry about it. But sometimes I also like to flank with my ranged units, which means that I don't want them getting caught if I'm distracted by doing something else. So that skirmish mode basically means that they will just try to avoid melee combat, even if troops are right here. So if they got attacked, this unit would most likely fall backwards. So again, it depends on your playstyle. Even as a beginner, I would be hesitant to use skirmish mode. It's a personal preference, but it's super iffy. So it's kind of hard to say what it is, what to do. Rather, I'm just going to tell you what it does. And then groups. Formations are unlocked by default. Now, locked versus unlocked when it comes to formations. This is the one thing I hate the most about Total War Attila, is that you can't, there's not a toggle for this. Groups are always locked unless you do something specifically. If we toggle it on and I group these two together by holding shift and left click, if I hit G, they are locked, or they are in a group, but they are locked. Locked means that whatever formation they are in when I put them in a group is what formation they will always stay in whenever I tell them to move. So if we move here, I am simply holding down right click and moving around at a point, and it will always go on that axis point. Now, if I have it unlocked, I'm going to hit G again to ungroup, hit G again to group it back. Oh, nope, it didn't do it. Hold on real quick. Doing it live. If you see that, that means that it's locked. If we unlock it, it will let me drag out units to whatever depth that I want. So this is, again, a personal preference thing. I, just by instinct, I prefer to have them unlocked because it just helps me. There's not always going to be a time where I want them to be a certain depth, and I'm just so used to custom dragging whatever I want to do that by locking them, I just feel restricted. I do use them, and even as a new player, I would probably say keep them locked because it will allow you to make formations a little bit easier. So that explains all of the defaults, this quick menu default section. So we're going to keep these guys so they walk all the time. I'm not going to have movement paths. Actually, I am going to have movement paths on by default. Firing arcs only when selected. Hide foliage all the time. No unit stats unless I go into tactical overlay. And then always keep the banners on. We're going to keep them on guard. We're not going to skirmish them. And we are not going to... Actually, we'll go ahead and lock that. So let me get these guys spread out appropriately. We're going to lock. And then I'm going to do that. Okay. And then last but not least is your UI on the bottom, which does have quite a bit of information. This will be a very long one. All right, so unit description. If I select any unit, it will keep the unit card. This, I think, is actually a pretty good thing to always have on. I usually have unit cards up for other Total War games. This just gives you a really good selection idea, as well as a real-time update on ammo, morale, and strength across all of your units. And you don't even have to have them selected. It can be like, okay, I can look over here. Okay, my missile dude needs some help, or my Hastati needs some help. Very, very crucial information, which I think, especially as a beginner, you need to have up on the board. Next up is all of the things that we have over here by our defaults, but as toggles. So I could have him move, I could toggle him to run. I could toggle him to retreat if I wanted to, which means he would just instantly run away and go off the battlefield. Tactical retreats are definitely something that you can do in an effort to save some troops that you want to keep, or if you just realize you're losing the battle, to kind of save face, as long as it's not your second time to get attacked, as we had, just mentioned, because then everyone will die. No bueno. For units that have the ability to have ranged combat, you can have this, force melee. If you do forced melee, you can click on another unit and you'll be able to melee attack. If you don't have this on, then they will, if they have the ability to shoot ranged, you'll see an arrow marker where you can shoot ranged. But otherwise, they will automatically go to melee. We have guard mode on, that default option. And then we have swap melee missile. Swap the positions of selected melee and missile units. So if we were to do that, they would literally swap position, which is really, really handy. If you wanted to group up, for instance, 2 units that you wanted to have like one in front of the other. So you could have archers up front, Hastati in the back, and then you could even do this. And I'll explain what I just did in a second. You could do that, and then they're in a group. So you can just have them switch. And be like, okay, it's time to move real quick, which is a really, really cool feature. I like it. Formation is between loose and tight. If I did loose, it is going to spread my units out a whole bunch versus tight. Loose is perfect if you are under fire. If you're under fire, setting them to loose means that the units aren't so packed together, which makes arrows a little bit more impactful. But if you're in loose, it's going to have a harder time hitting a lot of units. You have a group formation. This is just the hand group formation. If you want to do that, we can do fire at will as well. This basically means if it's toggled off, they will not fire until you tell them to. If you have fire at will turned on, they will fire as soon as they are able to at whatever person is closest. Now, what I am not entirely sure of is I thought that there were formations in here, but maybe I am mistaken. Okay, I am mistaken, which is fine. And then right here, if you select, this selects all units, which can be super helpful. We go back to our general. He has something unique about him. There are certain units that will have abilities or things that other units can't do. So for instance, he has a special ability of rally troops, which is basically just a big morale boost, which is perfect. If you time it right, you'll be able to save some units that may be routing, which is really, really important. Something to keep in mind of, and it does, I believe, have a cooldown, if not a limit to how many times you can do it, so keep that in mind. And then you have a ranged unit, has its own options. This is the skirmish mode, like I mentioned. We can make him have skirmish mode, or we can have him do flaming arrows, which is completely and 100% historically accurate. That's a joke. But they have the ability to fire flaming arrows, which will affect, especially like horses, it'll affect their morale a whole lot more and give them a more incentive to rout, which is fantastic. Now, there are a couple of other things that you're just going to have to learn as we go along. For instance, if we were to look over here, you'd see that these guys, I do believe they thrive a little bit in forests. Right there. Combat bonus in woods. There we go. So it's just little things like that. I'm not going to be able to go over absolutely everything. And so that's kind of your basics on how to absorb all of the user interface that is on the borders. Now, maybe, just maybe, 30 minutes into a video on battles, we can look into actually starting a battle. Now, this is really where the meta or the strategy side comes into play, and I may not do this quite so much to an extent. I know some people will probably scream at what I'm about to set up or call it whatever, but we're going to set up, I'm not going to worry so much about the super strategic side of things. But what I do know is that we have 3 melee-based units, well, 1 ranged and 2 melee units. We don't have any cav. So because the enemy has no cav, my unit of Triarii are not going to be needed on the flanks. Typically, horsemen in Total War will try and flank you, which is a natural strategic thing to do. So just by instinct, I would drag a unit of Triarii over on the flanks to kind of help protect, say, my ranged units. So that way they couldn't get so easily wrecked. But what we're going to do for this battle is I'm actually going to slap this sucker onto the middle. But I forgot about this, guys. I really do apologize. It comes to moving the camera. This is one of the first things I should have done right off the bat. W, A, S, and D, just like your campaign map. Q and E. Q and E are not quite like the campaign map. This rotates it, but it doesn't rotate it on a center and go around like the other ones, or like the campaign map does. Instead, it obviously rotates left to right. You move around. If you hold down shift, you will go faster. By instinct, I always have shift held down. And then if you hold down the middle button on your mouse, you'll be able to kind of pan around. So when I'm moving, it is a combination of WASD, holding down shift, as well as moving my middle mouse button, holding down my middle mouse button, and moving my mouse around. If that gives you a little bit of stomach sickness, Total War may not be for you. But, okay. So I apologize for that. I should have done that straight from the get-go. We are going to select 2 units. My 2 units of Hastati. We have our Triarii right in the middle. I'm going to grab my 2 units of Hastati. They are in a locked formation now, which means I will not be able to stretch them per se. And I'm going to flank on to the right side. I am going to dissolve that. I'm going to get my other 2 units. And here is another little trick. If you hold down Alt while a unit is selected, and then left click and drag them, you can drag that unit anywhere you want in formation. So I'm going to Alt and left click drag side by side here. We're going to hit G again for the second formation, second group. You can have a total of 10 groups, which use the number pads 1 through 0 on your top keyboard. So that's another quick selection way to do it. I'm going to slap my archers a little bit closer. And also, when you hold down Alt and click, if you hold down Control, your fingers are going to be everywhere. You can actually rotate it. So we're going to rotate because I know, probably with a good, decent fact, that I'm not going to face these guys directly on. And then I got my Roman general. We're going to place him anywhere. It doesn't really matter because we'll use him a little bit, but it won't be too crazy. And then that's all we can do. So we're going to hit Start Battle. All right, so the units are indeed right in front of us. But what I want to do is I want to face them from a different angle. So I am going to select all my units by either dragging, hitting Control A, or this unit selection. I am going to hold down Alt. I am going to left click on any of the units, which means I can drag the entire army in formation. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to turn them this way. This is literally just to show you how to do it. That's the only reason. And then you'll see those unit marker selections go up, or the unit pathing. And we're just going to walk. We're going to walk and we're going to take our time. This is going to keep their fatigue levels down. We are attacking, and these guys are the superior force. So they are most likely not going to attack us, at least not initially. So as you can see here, Town Watch, Super General Gray troops, peasants, they will rout very, very easily. Honestly, the hardest troops we may face are these velites. But if, can I not select them? Oh, I can't select the unit card. They should not have the range that our archers do. So as you can see, we're going to be walking. We're just trudging. I'm going to triple forward time. Like I said, that's a good way to use it, to kind of wait for your armies to post up. There we are. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to drag. And I'm going to move these guys forward just a smidgen. And then we're going to go into normal speed. Because I do believe these guys will come at us at some point. So this keeps our fatigue levels manageable. The more tired we are, the less likely we are to get wrecked by morale. And bad things happen when that comes into play. Music is fantastic. Such good nostalgia. Alrighty, and as you can see, that ticker is timing down. If you select unlimited battles, you will never see a timer. But most by default are 45 or 60 minutes, depending on what you toggled. If we do not destroy all of the units in that time, we actually lose the battle, or it becomes a draw. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so they aren't going to do anything still. I'm going to move these guys up. Typically what will happen is as soon as my units get within ranged combat, so when our archers get within range, they will start advancing, because otherwise we could just pepper them to death. And then one thing I'm going to do is, let's see, I don't know that terrain really makes a difference in unit speed. So what we are going to do is I'm going to show you how to drag and draw a unit path. So with any unit selected, you hold down shift and you right click. And this will let you draw a unit path however you want to draw it. And the general is going to obey that unit path. Now, we're obviously not going to do that. But this is a fantastic way to get a unit around a bunch of units to set up a flank or to set up a special formation. Very, very critical. And I know a lot of people, even today, probably don't know about that shortcut. So you are welcome, but it is going to be very, very helpful. Now, unit pathing in Rome Total War is still not fantastic. So you will have some issues compared to newer Total War games, but it is still relevant and it is still a completely valid tactic, as we are about to see here. These units are going to advance towards me. We're going to drag our general back a little bit. And I'm actually going to go at half speed so I can explain things a little bit quicker. Or a little bit easier, rather. So you can see they are moving up. Let's go ahead and get our archers to fire on the town watch. They don't know what to do. The AI is freaking out just a little bit. But our units... Ooh, you know what? We don't have these on by default. Fire at will, gentlemen. All right. There we go. We got our flaming shot on. Toasty. Toasty. All right, they are going to come after my units here. So now what we are going to do is I'm going to move my general back. But I'm going to move these... Actually, I'm only going to do one. I'm going to move him around. I'm going to move him around. And then we are going to do Alt-click. As you can see there we go. Yep, that's the unit pathing issue I was talking about. We're going to move these guys. I am going to make them go faster, so they will move a little bit quicker. And then we're going to move our Triarii as well. It's all about, it's a reaction, but a strategic reaction, in my opinion. That makes Total War games, slower battles, I should say, a little bit better. So as we can see here, we're going to try and lead the Town Watch into a little bit of a ranged attack. Let's go ahead and hit those velites instead, because I can friendly fire. That is something you'll have to consider. All right, so these guys are in range now, and you can see they're getting their pilums, their ranged attack ready. Remember, they only have 2 volleys. Town Watch does not have a ranged attack. And there we go. I know this might seem a little bit minor, chat, but it's like I'm streaming on Twitch. But this is pretty important just to kind of learn the basics of the game. Those guys are now firing on the velites. I'm going to order this dude to stop. And I'm going to order this guy to go right here. And now you can see they're in the range of the second unit. It's not very smart running across. You'll notice here, though, that if we select our unit card... why isn't the unit card showing up? That's very rude. As you can see, their ammo is going down. And these guys are broken. Now, broken doesn't mean that they are gone for absolutely ever. It means that they are routing. Now, we can press the attack, and if we were to press the attack, they would potentially rout for good, which is pretty much what we always want. So we are going to double-click on them, which means they are going to run and charge at the enemy. And we can go ahead and hit into play mode. Which is going to really bring in the pain. Let's go ahead and get those velites under fire. And then we are going to move these guys up. As you can see, chasing them is not going to do us much good, but those peasants, as not threatening as they are, we are still going to... I don't know what that was about. Looks like they attacked a little bit early. But we're going to see that they are going to get absolutely demolished by my spearmen. Now, I mean, we'll still lose a few units for sure, but yeah, it's not looking too good. So we're going to have our units just go out in a full bore attack. We're going to pull this guy back since we are about to be in battle. I'm actually going to turn off their fire at will and stop them so they don't do anything too crazy. And then we're going to hit play. Now remember, the goal is to kill as many people as possible. This guy, or this battle, we will kill them if the entire army routes. So that's something to think about. That we don't have to run them down, however, more units lost on their part. Oh, there we go. Look at that. We are just carving them up. But we can also gain some experience from these routing troops. Is always a valid technique. We're just going to go ahead and hit the town watch. And then, of course, we ran in. There we go. Simple as that. Victory. So we can continue the battle, which means we'd be able to run down the rest of the troops, potentially gain some decent experience on top of that, at the expense of, you know, making a longer battle. In this case, we're going to keep running them down, but you could always end the battle if you wanted to right there, because remember, they are fighting to the death. They lost. So if you've already got units that are worn down, I highly recommend just ending the battle because they'll die. The enemy will die anyways. All right, so let's go ahead and run them down. And I'm going to go into triple time because I don't want to waste any time. All right, well. Oh, we ran down their general right at the last second. Perfect. So what happened here? This is the boundaries of your battle map. I guess I probably should have talked about that as well. Kind of ran into this a little unprepared, can't tell. Units that have a majority of their troops that leave this boundary line can no longer be attacked. As you just saw there, they're all piling up at the end. Again, if you were to tell a unit to retreat, this is where they would try and go. They would try to go to the edge of the battle map and retreat so they can't get attacked anymore. You can see here that the enemy general has died, that notification that I was talking about, and we're just going to go ahead and wrap up the battle as soon as those units run off the field. There we go. Once all units are off the field, once all enemy units are off the field, it will give you a victory type. This was a clear victory. We only lost 10 troops to their 495. And then if you hit the plus button, you'll actually be able to see the experience, if any, that's gained, casualties sustained. As you can see, if we go here, they only inflicted 10 casualties, but we lost 12 total, which tells me we got under some friendly fire. Friendly fire is 100% possible. So just think about that. But then casualties healed, we had 2, which will knock it down to that 10. But just to keep that in mind. Casualties inflicted, casualties healed, obviously none, and they will die at the end of this battle. This is just a good way to see what units did fantastic. The Roman general got 117. Our Hastati did really good across the board. Roman archers, not so much, but even less was our Triarii that went up against those peasants. So anyways, there we go. And then you'll load up back into the campaign map where those stats will go across the board. And as you see, the enemy captain died, and we advanced to that point where we attacked, and then any remaining troops or any remaining movement points are left over. Now, our battle was actually kind of an evening-looking kind of battle, which means that is reflected on the campaign map until the next turn, which I think is kind of cool. I really like that effect. Now, what we can do, we have lost a couple of units. We've lost 6 units there. We've lost 2 units here. We need to go retrain those units if it's possible. You can only retrain units if you have the building that can recruit them. So, by default, Areminum cannot. So we're going to want to try and get to Arretium. So we're going to move back. It is going to take a full turn before we can get in there. And then we'll see how to retrain them. But guys, that's kind of your super basic. We had a very small battle. So this will probably be labeled a battle overview with a very small battle. If we are able to fight the Gauls, which I think we'll probably end up attacking here in the next turn, then this is a little bit of a bigger battle with some different types of troops than what we saw with the rebels. So it'll be a really good experience to kind of see what a little bit of a larger battle looks like at the very beginning of your campaign. But guys, that is going to be all for today. I hope that the battle was a bit comprehensive. It again was short, it was small, But I hope that all the information that I gave you, from unit stats to understanding what they mean, to the different formations that you can do, and even the different movements of, alt clicking, shift to draw your paths, and just understanding the basics of battle was there. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to check out my Twitch channel, where we will be playing some live gameplay throughout my time as we continue with Rome Remastered. And then, lastly, if you have yet to buy Rome Remastered if you have yet to buy it at all, you can purchase it on my Nexus GG game store, where you will support this channel. Thank you so very much for watching. This is Havoc, and I'll see you all in the next video.